So yeah, this is the last speaker for our session, Abby Dover, who's the linked data librarian at Northwestern University, and she is presenting Towards Linked Data Fluency, Takeaways from the Wikidata Workflow Pilot Program. So we stay in the Wikidata universe, and Abby, we're looking forward to hearing about your findings from this pilot program.
Okay. So I hope everyone can see my slides okay, can hear me all right? Awesome.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm going to talk today about some takeaways from a pilot Wikidata workflow program that we've been doing here at Northwestern. Just as a quick summary of what I'll be discussing at this presentation, I'll be starting with our origins and scoping of the program, a little bit about our implementation, some initial observations, some takeaways from a 9-month review process, and if I have time, some of our takeaways from the preliminary findings of a Ex Libris person info cards user study that we're conducting. These cards being the main way that our catalog users are being exposed to some of the Wikidata work that we've been doing. And then I'll wrap up with some overall takeaways. So I'm very excited to be giving this particular presentation here at SWIB because the origins of this program are SWIB. I first went to my first conference here was a SWIB 23, and I was a brand new, newly minted linked data librarian. My background is really more in cataloging and teaching rather than tech or linked data precisely. So that's the lens by which I sort of view my role. When I went to the SWIB 23 conference, I was looking for ways to methods that I could help my colleagues transition from traditional MARC catalog to a more BibFrame or linked data environment, because we at Northwestern have committed to moving to BibFrame, but we want to make that as smooth process as possible for our catalogers, and thus really looking for ways to make them feel fluent in linked data the way they currently feel fluent in traditional MARC cataloging. So when you look at the current landscape right now, especially if you're looking for something that's low cost, low barrier to entry, perhaps the best way for catalogers to start practicing working with linked data is with Wikidata. So at SWIB 23, I went to the breakout session, Libraries, Wikidata, and Linked Data Projects. And I was really interested to hear participants talking about, the participation in various Wikidata projects. But they ran into the issue that once a project had completed, participants generally stopped using Wikidata. And this is very natural. Most catalogers do not have Wikidata work as part of their job description. It's something they do on the side. And so, except for maybe one or two people who are particularly interested, most people, when they finish a project, stop until maybe a new project comes along. And so that really prohibits a sort of fluency, because when there's a long gap between when you use a skill, you atrophy, you get rusty. I know as a Japanese language student that regular and consistent practice sessions are much better than periodic cramming sessions for learning a new language or learning a new skill for gaining and maintaining that fluency. So it became clear to me that if I wanted to promote linked data fluency among the catalogers at my institution, we needed to find a way for Wikidata work to be a part of a regular cataloging workflow rather than something project-based. Now, of course, this isn't some sort of amazing revelation. I know many people have thought about this and have tried to get something like this going. So I can't really take a lot of credit for getting this off the ground, so much as just being very lucky to be at an institution that supported this project, this program idea. So when I went to my supervisor, who's the director of the metadata services at Northwestern, she was very supportive. And so together we worked out some of the scoping for what we wanted to do for this sort of pilot experiment in making Wikidata part of their regular workflows. So we started with deciding who would be participating. We decided to limit it to NACO or Name Authority Cooperative trained catalogers. with the idea that we could expand beyond that at a later time. This is about 14 people in total, although note that this is people who are just have the training. I'd really say more like 9 or 10 do NACO authority work on a regular basis. We decided that our target time investment would be around 2 to 4 hours a week. Definitely no more than that, and hopefully no less than that. But we understand that there are shifting priorities, and we had supervisors be expected to sort of help adjust those time commitments as needed. We decided that we would track stats locally in much in the same way that we track our NACO name authority stats, just by a spreadsheet, really. But we would most definitely have no quotas. The idea is for people to spend time in Wikidata on a consistent basis, not that we have some sort of production quota that we're looking for. So we very intentionally did not create any expectation of editing or creating a certain number of new items per week or month. We also didn't create a Wikidata project page. It didn't seem applicable since the very whole point of this is that it's not a project. It's a regular workflow, part of the regular duties. And we aren't concentrating on any particular type of person or type of topic or anything like that. It really varies. We have them identifying their Wikidata work through their NACO work. So as they do name authorities in NACO, they would then go into Wikidata and make sure that an item existed there or edit it as needed. And overall, although we are very much encouraging people to participate in this, and in fact making it essentially mandatory as part of their regular duties, NACO work would still take priority. So implementation, just as I'm not going to go over this super in detail or for the timeline, just for highlights, I'll say that I want to thank Adam L. Schiff for providing some help and guidance during the policy creation process in the spring to summer 2024. We officially kicked things off in September 4th, 2024, and we joined the early adopter phase of the Program for Cooperative Cataloging's Entity Management Cooperative, or PCC MCO's Wikidata Community Practice in March 2025. Since we'd already been doing regular Wikidata work for several months by then, this was a very easy transition into joining the MCO community. And yeah, that's been kind of the highlight so far. We started our user study on the Ex Libris person cards just this month in November. During implementation, we just set up some basic things here to make it an easier process. We created a departmental SharePoint site with policies, frequently asked questions, the stats spreadsheet, and also a clearinghouse, which was sort of experimental. The idea being that for people who had more name or candidate items than they had time to deal with in that sort of 4 hour a week window, they could post them and other people would claim them who didn't have as much to do, and we could sort of even the workload in that way. One of the big things we implemented to make this process more smooth was wiki hours, is what we're calling them. These are sort of working hours over Zoom. They were originally held twice a week when we were first ramping up. And then later at the beginning of this year, we moved to 2 times a month. They're completely optional, but they are pretty well attended. And depending on what we have going on, sometimes we spend the whole hour just quietly co-working. There's always opportunities for questions and answers, especially at the beginning, we had a lot of that. And occasionally we have someone demo a tool that they've discovered or that they like to use so that others can learn about that tool and perhaps start using it themselves. We also have a distribution list for news. And as far as training goes, people were coming into this with very differing levels of familiarity with Wikidata. And so training was sort of tailored to the person. Some people were starting brand new. Others had already been using Wikidata for some time and were pretty conversant. So we did use a lot of Wikidata's own training materials to help with the training process. So I won't go into this in detail in interest of time, but some of the policies we adopted, that the Wikidata work would not replace NACO work, but can be done in conjunction. We thought a bit about how we were going to deal with usernames, because they're doing this work not as a on their own as a personal account, but as part of official Northwestern duties. So we asked them to form a new username with their name plus NU at the end. And then if they had a personal account in their user page, they would declare the connection between the two and specify and be very open about the fact that the same person was using both and in what capacity. So we just figured that transparency was key, and so far it's been working all right. We asked that in sort of in accordance with general PCC policies, we are not adding sex, gender, or transgender status, property of P21, unless it is both very notable and well documented from firsthand sources. And as of September this year, now that it's been established how IMCO libraries should record their participation in the project, we have been adding property P5008 on focus list of Wikimedia project to the records that we do. At least as far as person and corporate bodies, which have had best practices determined. For things like works and editions, no best practices have been determined by IMCO yet, and so we're not marking those. We don't really do a lot of those anyway. Workflows, the actual specific workflows, we didn't really dictate this, so people have been sort of discovering their own, what works best for them, so there are different ones that people are using. Some folks use start in Wikidata and then use Gary Strawn's authority toolkit, Gary Strawn being a Northwestern colleague, to bring the information into the NACO record and then bringing the Library of Congress control number back into Wikidata to finish. Others start with NACO, then go into Wikidata, and then come back perhaps with a QID. This is a little bit more unwieldy because there isn't really a easy to use one button process to bring information from NACO into Wikidata, as far as we are aware. Such a tool would be very useful if it existed. Other workflow variations, some people like to use Credo and Zotero SiteQ as part of their workflows. Some initial observations I found, some challenges we ran into. For catalogers, especially NACO catalogers, the idea that we don't really own the record, the item that we created, that anybody could come in and edit it at any time. I had questions like, if we create something and then we see that someone who came in and added these various things or did things we don't quite agree with, are we supposed to change it back? And, the idea being we don't really want to get into Wikidata edit wars, and we need to learn to let go a little bit and let people do what they're going to do. It's not really a good use of our time to like monitor records that we did, or I see you saying records, you can tell I'm a cataloger, items that we created and, trying to maintain some sort of standard after the fact. We just have to understand that this is a collaborative project and we don't own these. And that's definitely been very different compared to NACO work, which has a lot of gatekeeping involved to prevent just anybody from touching the data. There's, of course, the normal just figuring out the different properties, the fact that there's no one-to-one correlation, so things may be called something different or not exist in quite the same way. There were conversations about privacy concerns, especially with living persons, and this is very much in keeping with current PCC trends towards being more mindful of the privacy of living persons and not recording certain information if we can help it. And of course, time commitment. And I'll put sort of a mental circle around this because this comes up more later. Opportunities. One thing I didn't anticipate, but I thought was interesting, is that some of our catalogers really love the research part of creating name authority records, and they would come up with a lot of information that they couldn't really put in a NACO record, or they would, but they really shouldn't. And so they really took to Wikidata as an outlet for putting all that information that they found during the research process in a way that is more accessible, and that in return makes their NACO records better by making them more concise, because they don't feel like they have to cram everything into the NACO record. So that's been an unlooked for benefit. We also have many multilingual catalogers, and so the multilingual capabilities of Wikidata have been appreciated. And of course, we started this. I didn't even realize IMCO was coming when we started this. So when the IMCO Wikidata community practice started, the early access, We just hit the ground running. We just continued doing what we were already doing. So there was a very smooth transition to doing that kind of work because we'd already been doing it. So around the 9-month process, I started a sort of a review to get a sense of what was working and what wasn't. The review had several steps. I took a look at the statistics. Like I said, we did not have quotas, but I just wanted to see roughly how productive we had been doing under that lack of constraint. And on average, roughly, we've been adding 28 new items and 68 edited items per month total. So that's maybe not a whole lot, but it is definitely consistently making some progress and doing some work in Wikidata, which is the idea. Not that we do have a great number of productivity necessarily, but that we're steadily chipping away. I interviewed the supervisors one-on-one, the people who supervise people who are part of this cohort. The response was very positive. I heard that there were no people grumbling behind the scenes about how they hated having to do all of this. Definitely, though, there were issues with workload. Some people, in both directions, that we had some people who just had too much work on their plate to devote time, even 2 hours a week, to Wikidata was a real burden for a few people. And there were some also who were so enamored with Wikidata that they were spending way more than 4 hours a week and were having trouble keeping it with their NACO work. So, but the majority, it was working out as we anticipated. Finally, I conducted a cohort survey using Qualtrics in July. About 15 questions, 9 people responded, though they didn't answer necessarily every question. I can't, for the interest of time, I'm not going to go over the entire survey, of course, but I'll focus on some key questions towards the end, which help kind of summarize the reaction to the project or the program. So question 11 was, has your comfort level with Wikidata changed since our new Wikidata policies were implemented? And the responses were that somewhat more comfortable were 43%, much more 29%, other, which just really just wanted to add a note, one person, and then one person said that they were about as comfortable. This was an anonymous survey, so I can't say this for certain, but I'm pretty sure the person who answered that their comfort level did not change was the person who came into this already having done Wikidata for years. And so there was no additional comfort level. They already felt very comfortable. I'm pretty sure that's who that was. The person who wanted to add something said, working with Wikidata has changed how I work with Library of Congress name authority records. I now include links for most info found online with that 670 to facilitate using that link as a reference in Wikidata as well, and generally to make the info easier to retrieve should someone wish to. I now think of the Library of Congress name authority record as being a potential source as well as a public document. Question 12 was, has your comfort level with linked data as a whole changed? That is, do you feel that the skills and understanding gained during this process will be transferable to other linked data contexts such as Sinopia or BibFrame? 57% said yes, 43% weren't quite sure, and no one felt strongly that this was not the case. Some of our yes responses went on to elaborate, I think, more in terms of parallel and the connected info resources now. That's the biggest change for me. Another person said, using Wikidata helps reinforce my understanding of triples, classes, and properties. And another, I have worked in BibFrame, and it was clear from the beginning that working in Wikidata should be a prerequisite to BibFrame. Wikidata is relatively user-friendly, BibFrame editors or not. And question 13, now that we've been working with Wikidata into NACO catalogers workflows for over 9 months, what are your overall impressions? Positive was 43%, mixed was 57, and negative was no one. Now I say mixed, and you'll see why it's mixed. 2 people responded with additional information, and I think you'll be able to see a theme for why they felt that it was not completely positive. One person said, an interesting learning curve and nice to be able to make a difference in improving descriptions and details. And I like how Wikidata dovetails with Library of Congress name authority work, but I have way too much work to do to focus on Wikidata as a main thing. And another said, On the one hand, I think it is good to provide information to Wikidata, and the author cards in Primo, that's our discovery layer, we use Ex Libris Primo, are a good thing. On the other hand, we are already overworked and understaffed, and requiring Wikidata work will have to be at the expense of something else. I don't know if anyone's heard in the news, but Northwestern has definitely been targeted by current political events, and we've had to do a lot of salary and hiring freezes. So right now in particular has been a very tough time to introduce anything new as far as workflows or job duties go. So this is not surprising that a few folks really struggle to find the time to do Wikidata work, considering they already honestly had too much to do. And there's really not a lot I can really do about this. It's just having to be mindful of that. Other survey takeaways, a majority felt that the 2 to 4 hours a week were manageable, but a notable minority, about 33%, did not feel so because of that overwork. The most helpful tools, people really like the wiki hours and our local distribution list. But the clearinghouse really hasn't seen the use I was hoping for. Maybe I need to advertise it better. And actually, some people didn't find Wikidata's documentation very useful. 72% overall wanted the policy to continue, but 28% wanted it to be made optional. Again, that was overlap with the folks who just did not have the time to work on it. 29% even wanted expanded further. I don't know if I can do that right now, given the current environment, but it's something I very much hope to do in the future. One thing that a colleague said that it wasn't part of the survey, but was part of this process that I thought was very interesting, was they said, Wikidata needs us more than we need Wikidata. And by this, they meant, I think, that the benefits we're getting from this are really are not as concrete, at least at this current time. Our catalog doesn't really use Wikidata very much for our users, but Wikidata really benefits from having people with cataloging expertise and name authority expertise contributing. We have answers to questions. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We've been doing this for years. And the expertise and the help we can provide shaping Wikidata is very much needed in their opinion. And so it's very much a mutual benefit for catalogers to be contributing to Wikidata. Okay, let me check how I'm doing with time here.
And not so good, actually. So
Oh,
actually,
okay.
we're
I'm so
already
sorry.
out of time.
Oh, I'm already at time. Oh my goodness. All right. Well, I will skip through this. We did a survey findings. You can read the slides to find the surveys findings. Generally, it was mixed. I'll just say. And general takeaways. I feel like the project was successful, but we have further work to do as far as incorporating the Wikidata work and being mindful of the time burden. And there we go.
Thank you so much, Abby. There were several questions, and also maybe we can put the discussion also into the forum. Maybe I ask one of them at least, and then maybe take the longer one. To figure out the correct properties to use, have you considered creating a schema in Wikidata schema namespace for your participants to consult?
Well, we have one thing that sort of we were looking at different ideas, but one thing that has really helped with this process has been IMCO. They have created some best practices and crosswalks with MARC properties that have really answered a lot of the questions that we had. So we're currently using that, and we may investigate more methods in the future. But I really kind of wish IMCO had been around when we started, because it would have been very helpful.
Thank you so much, Abby. Due to the time, we can't do so much more
Oh,
questions.
so
But
sorry.
please, no problem, no problem. So you can maybe check out the forum, and then the discussion goes on there. Thank you again to all speakers of today's session. This is the end of this session, but tomorrow there's more SWIP, so please stay with us, and we see you tomorrow. I would also remind that there are workshops for the Americas time zone. So then you have I think 15 minutes a break now, and then you can go to your workshops. And to everyone else, have a good day or a good night wherever you are, and we see you tomorrow.